Welcome back to another Wednesday with the Releasing the Genius podcast, where we're interviewing exceptional people from around the world that have had a huge impact. The next person, both Kim and I had the opportunity to meet her in Thailand last year at the World Math Olympiad.
So I like to talk about that a bit because this trip that we made was in Thailand, and we were sitting down with a lot of the people who came from the different countries from mainly around that area of the world. And beside me sat this lady, and she had this huge smile on her face and seemed really intrigued on getting to know everybody. And I started listening to her, and I started listening to what she had done. And I realized that, whoa, this lady wasn't just another person who is really passionate about mathematics. She's actually passionate about STEAM and getting her country ahead. And not just her country, but several other countries. I think it's about 6 different countries that she's been working with. And she's done this from very humble beginnings. She decided herself that this was important, so she just drove through, got things happening. Basically, she didn't stop at anything, and she really wants her country to be able to compete at the global level. So how is she doing that? How is she getting all these schools to a global level, all the teachers to a global level, all the thinking so that people can think at a global level and help create a government that is capable to go forward with a whole bunch of people? So when I was talking to her, I thought she'd be perfect to interview. So I took this opportunity when we were in Thailand to interview her. And Nathan, can you please just talk a little bit about, give all the qualifications that she's got, and then we're going to get into this interview. It's just fascinating listening to this lady.
Sure. So she's been working on this globe strategy since 1999, while being president of the Institute of the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology for the Asia+Pacific region. She's leading the effort to develop and increase the quality of science, mathematics, and technology education in Thailand. Now, there is a quote here that I remember she said that when students are permitted to follow their own natural curiosity and to learn to apply mathematics and technology in their investigations, they truly are acquiring the skills needed to become the generation of global scientists. And so I remember during reading into what she wants is that it's about moving away from purely rote memory and going into that curiosity mode and critical thinking as well. And so she's also dedicated to raising the level of environmental literacy and technology fluency and information acquisition. This is all part of the Globe project that she's working on. Now, we did meet her last year at the World Mathematical Olympiad in Thailand, and you were able to interview her, and that's where we're going to jump to very shortly, into that interview.
Okay, so let's go and hear it.
Hello, I'm here today with Dr. Pornpun Waitayangkoon. Have I got that correct? Good, excellent. Okay. Okay, and I'm really excited to be here in Thailand to speak to you. What had happened was we were at the World Math Fusion Olympiad, and when I heard your story and what you were going to be doing, I thought, wow, there's something very special happening here. And just the insight, the vision that you've got, and the understanding of what's happening with Thailand and what's needed. And that's why we're here today, is because of your love for this country, but also the work that you've done. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. Let's first of all talk a little bit about Thailand itself. And if you could give us a little story about where was Thailand 20 years ago, where is it now, and what do you see in the future for Thailand in 20 years? Mm-hmm. I know that's a kind of a tough question because many people are asking, where's the world going to be in 20 years? Mm-hmm. And so give us what you can, okay?
Well, back 20 years ago, I think that it could be a start of education reform. Yeah. And before that, we just have a kind of things in place, and with low level of literacy in technology during that time, So actually we depend on, I mean that in the education sector, we rely on whatever we have, yeah. But
So what do you mean by that? You rely on whatever you have?
what my impression on this, because actually Thailand could go further and faster, but the lack of all kind of resources, budgeting or everything, it means that they kind of slower things to go up in advance, I've been comparing to other advancement of other countries, of developed countries. Yeah, we are in the phase of, at that time we are developing countries. And now they said that we develop already, things like that. Yeah. So
Yes.
actually we look to our countries member in the Southeast Asian, we compare that things, right? So we quite, during 20 years, if you ask a history of that, at least I say it, but I focus on the education at that time. So we do education reform to keep going our human resources and other things to update with the changing world, changing society at that time, I think. And it's quite slow, as I mentioned, but there are also advantages also, right? In terms of the population, it's not much like this. It could be only 40 million, but now it's 65, almost 70 in a few years,
Wow.
I would say. So
The growth rate is just
right,
tremendous.
yeah. So it's just like that we try to encourage, innovations in teaching, in pedagogies, like why the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology established in 1972, around that time, because we would like to revolutionize the education. Science and mathematics and technology is a must. Also, all the way, we try to do that. But things like once we introduce science as an inquiry, things like that we require students to manipulate or do experiments, but schools still lack those learning resources, those equipment, So it quite very slowly in the development of that. Yeah, to me it seems like that. Or even now, even the more schools could afford that, but actually looking at the whole population, the whole school, we have 30,000 schools across the country, but just only 10 or 20%, we might say that they're ready for everything, but to meet all kind of standard, I would say that. The rest could be done something small in terms of effort and policy, rigid policy, not the changing one. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So that's an interesting point there,
Right.
the rigidity.
Yeah.
And why do you think it's so rigid for?
Well, actually, the so-called the land of smile, that means our people are very good. Yeah. So they can do or they cannot do. They might not, if there's, for example, if the act might not be compulsory, things like that. So it could be done or could not be done. And particularly for the education system, I think that at that time, after 20 years, that we do some things like monopoly.
Like what was that?
Centralized.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one single curriculum.
Right.
But back to 1999, we reformed and try to decentralize, the education, all kind the act in support of that. So, during that time, during the start of the reform, they might not be ready in terms of administration, in terms of recruitment of head of regional services area, things like that. So they need time to get acquainted with things happening and change, So it still be like this at the moment until we have the second reform. Now we have the second reform. The
Okay, so
first
what
reform
is the
already
second
come.
reform then? Okay, so,
Well, since the world changing very fast,
yes.
and we need to do more on that, particularly mandate all kind of pedagogies or everything in terms of the policy, right? That is important. And practices also. Try to make practices go along with the policy, you know. Sometimes it is the policy, sometimes the practice is so different
Do
and
you,
vary, you know.
yeah, so I think one of the concerns that I'm seeing globally is that flexibility and the ability for teachers to change and to understand what it really looks like.
Mhm.
Are you finding the same here in Thailand where that's,
Well, it's quite a value of the society at the
okay,
moment. Back, you know, in the past, we view that the teacher professionals seems very high value,
Yes.
you know. And the best of any province could be teachers. But now things, you know, change very fast, and many not just view that as important as in the past, you know.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it could be that being civil service as teachers, they get very low income.
Okay.
Yeah, not comparing to medical doctors, comparing to engineers, comparing to other kinds of professionals. So the new generation try to thrive to university in order to be this kind of professions, right? The first that they think about is physician, I mean medical doctors, engineers, and anything that they can make a lot of money. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to a businessman from America at
Yes.
one point, and I was wondering why he was treating me so poorly for a long time. And I knew him for months, and it was an acquaintance that I got to know a little bit more. And at one point in time, he said to me, "You know, Kim," and this is when he started treating me better and talking to me a little better,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Teachers in America," this is at least how he perceived it, he said that they are the people who get the lowest grade point average, they don't have anything else to do, and this is where they end up going.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else who gets a high mark will go into other fields. And so I thought, well, that's why you're treating me the way you are, as if I'm not very important and, and whatever. And you know, and it's not, I think that is part of what you were saying is the values and the change in the values. And does it really matter whether you're getting paid a lot or not? And before, that wasn't the key. The key was the value of teaching in that profession was highly regarded. And I'm seeing that shift all over, where it started, I saw in the Western world, and now I'm hearing it starting in the Eastern, or actually not just starting, it's actually happened, is what I'm hearing and seeing. And to hear that from you is very interesting.
Right.
And I think that some of the brightest people still are in education. It's just that often they're not
They are
shining.
not. They are
Yes,
not
and
in
they're
Thailand
not.
at
They're
the
not in
moment.
Thailand, really? Okay.
They would
And-
like to go to any profession that they can have
But
high
not
income.
teaching.
Yeah.
Yes. So it really is.
Most of them.
Yes.
Most
Listen
of
to-
the new generations, they seem to think like this.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because if that's true, then if you're going to go, if you're going to go forward in 20 years from now, I mean, education I see is fundamental to the
Right.
future of any society.
Right.
And if you look at the education now, in 20 years from now, or even 10, 15 years from now, you can almost predict where that society is going to. And if Thailand is having difficulty with this in terms of getting the brightest to teach the young people, where do you see this going?
Well, as I perceive with my own eyes and my friends who in the area of education, I mean, we might not rely much on the people, I mean on teachers themselves. Their roles need to be changed. They need to understand the changing also, I mean technology or tools that can use to facilitate the students, not just tell the story to them or help them do things in memory, things like that, but they have to explore themselves guided by the teachers, I would say. If their role is still the same, it could not go with the changing world, usually, I would say, yeah. And this is the fact that, I mean, policymakers really understand that, and they try to do everything. I admire the current government, that they try very hard during the back 5 years, because if we looking at the problems of the education, I would say that the achievement of the student, that is the criteria to say that our system is good or not. We can say that because of teachers first, because they deliver everything to the student from the start, early childhood or primary or secondary. And if they don't change much, it could be the same. So we talk about reforming higher education. That implies that pre-service education, I mean, teacher production going to be changed as well, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they're not just like the old curriculum in the past. The best way to fasten the change is with the teachers themselves. We have to change them, the curriculum, to produce these teachers, the skill, 21st century skill that we talk much about. This our curriculum need to be changed a bit. So teacher curriculum going to be changed also, either pre-service or in-service,
Now, with this new initiative that you have, and
Right.
yes, could you possibly just talk a little bit about it, because it's the Regional Center for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Education,
Right.
so CMEO STEM Ed, and you are the interim director at this time. I really liked where the direction was for this, and part of what I got from you during the presentation was that there was this is to focus on vocations for people going forward, and I think this is what you were talking about as well,
Right.
to provide them with something very concrete with the students of the future, so that they have that concrete vocation of some
Right.
type. Can you just explain a little bit about what's happening with that whole project?
I don't say that it's a project,
Well,
but it's all the
initiative.
mission that I have to responsible for all my life. I worked with IPST for 40 years until I retired. And back 20 years, we think about try to maximize the talent group in science and technology in order we can develop the country, we can increase the economy things. We have done that for a long, long time. We provide scholarship to the high school students who are very talented. We also develop teachers of high potential in science and mathematics, because we would like to have a pool of scientists, to be people of the country, to drive the country economy, right? But it's not that difficult, it's not that easy, because, like I mentioned to you, the professions, right, medical doctor or engineers, or computing some things, that gain a lot of money. So even they are groomed, but sometimes we lost them. We send them for the doctoral level degree or master to UK, to the US, or also some to Canada. But still, I would say we can grab them back to work for the country, just only maybe 80 to 85%. We lost 15%. They might train and work with the country they are starting, just return the money as a scholarship, but we don't need that, you know. So while we working on this, we have to improve all the system also. We participate in the OECD PISA study since 2000, you know. Every round we got the same result, that our students of 15 years, they have low literacy of science, mathematics, and reading, you know. And this is because it's a problem at the policy level also, because we have 8 subjects all the way through from the first grade. So reading supposed to, or mathematics supposed to have more time, you know, is a core subject. We supposed to pull all the time allocate for all the curriculum for this. But since they have to study 8 subjects from the start, so for the mass of the student, they gain low literacy in reading and math. That is very important because this is a strong foundation to learn other things, you know. In many countries, they just offer 5 core subjects for the early student or primary, you know. For the post primary, like grade 5 or 6, okay, they can gain more subjects to do, but this is the case also, you know.
What subjects do they have?
Mathematics,
Yes.
science,
Yes.
and social study, English and Thai, and others, you know. We also have 8 subjects, like physical education, that would be a things, or some others, I could history and geography,
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
During,
That's it.
you know, time after time they just change, but still they offer a crowded curriculum.
Yes.
So
It's too
school
many
need
things.
to offer. This is a regulation.
Yes.
We got to follow the same. Even we do a standard for the curriculum framework, but still they offer important subject with little time allocated, you know. So we looking at this, so we have this situation for many years, more than 20 years, you know. While we working on the talent group, we have to work on the math also. So we try to do this, but you know, we have problem with the curriculum structure as well, and they are going to solve it. I think that they can do, you know, because everyone who do this kind of thing, that every subject is, you know, humanize the student, is all equal. They don't understand the word equal, you know. It's not that, right? So we have to do like this. And the PISA show us that, okay, low literacy in important subject, right? Reading, mathematics, and science. Whatever they do, like do collaboration or do some other creativity, they get quite low. But there's still a group that bypass and can be competed well with other countries in the world.
So let's talk about that group too.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
Because they have all resources, necessary resources. They can do, they can have, they can afford. Like we have a high school science high school, the special one that every student got the scholarship, or we have a special science school across 12 ones of them, and we also have the schools under Faculty of Education, like a demonstration school of university. So these groups are quite good, and it shows that they have good teachers, their parents are higher in status, and they don't have anything about resources or teachers' quality, because they're from the Faculty of Education, you know, and everything. So looking at this, because we have a large number of schools, as I told you, 30,000 schools. So they just only allocate budget for each school on the number of the students in that. If they have 4,000 students, they got high budget and they can manage easily. But for the small school, we still have to keep them because the transportation is not that light. We don't have a yellow bus like in the US that get every student, in the car, things like that. But so in the area, in the remote area, we have a lot of small schools. Maybe 1/3 of them that are serious small. When we have a small number, they got lower budget also because it's depend on the number of the students.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a policy to merge the school, but there's a protest from their parents, from the
That's
community,
right. Yes.
because it's difficult for the student to go to school.
Yes.
But actually, we have distance learning also under the patronage of the king. That we have the king's distance learning for the basic education as well, and we distributed all the satellite dish to all schools.
One of the pieces that you talked about was about the serious issues in education that you're
Right.
seeing in Thailand. And you mentioned that it was an underdeveloped country. One of my major concerns that I've been focusing on is that it's not just in underdeveloped countries, the issue of education and what's going on. In fact, in the developed countries, it's almost invisible. People aren't seeing that there are some serious issues. Some people are, and parents are extremely concerned. They're looking for alternatives. They're looking for ways to find other places to go. In Canada, where I'm from, we're very lucky in that the government has been able to pull together a lot of diversity within the school systems, so it doesn't really necessarily, it's not necessarily affected by where you're living. It's more about the resources of the parents and some other things like that.
Right.
But I think there is a much bigger issue happening globally in education. I think it's you're seeing it more clearly in the underdeveloped countries, and you do have other issues as well. And I think it might be good for just to hear the very serious concerns you have in education in Thailand, particularly with the students who live in remote areas. And there's, what percentage of the population would you say live in remote areas?
65 million, and 2/3 of schools are in remote.
2/3 of the schools.
Yeah, and that could be around that number. I mean, 2/3 of the student populations.
My goodness, that's huge.
Right, very huge. So that lower the score on PISA study because the large amount of students are quite low, and we need to concentrate on this group of the students. To me, I think that those parent group, they can have their own ways with a kind of encouragement and opportunity from the government. They can do anything they can, and we can gear them to the area that we need also with a kind of incentive for those students. But for this group, the mass group, that we need to do this. We share this with our regional countries before we setting up the senior center, STEM Ed Center. We really have them to come and talk together what the areas of their concern, of their issues. They talk about everything. Everyone agreed that the economy of the country need to go up higher than what they have, And this is the one thing, increase the income of the country.
Which countries were involved with this?
CMO countries,
Okay.
11 of them, including
Yes.
Thai.
Yes.
So they have Singapore, they have Brunei, they have Malaysia, they have CLMV, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. Just Timor-Leste didn't come, I think, around them. The majority of them coming and saying, okay, it would be nice that we talk about the economy of the country, because education is the foundation of the economy, right? So we feel that way, and we talk about the career of the math, of the student who may not have more opportunity as the talent group, that every country is trying to do some things with their strategies. We do ours, they do theirs. For this, so we end up with that basic education is a must. That they need to meet the standard that we set, right? It's a kind of a universal standard as well. Regional countries already have regional curriculum standard, and they're quite concerned with PISA study because it says that their education system, their capacity of their young citizen is not so high, and we not compare with Singapore. That's the only country that they go very fast. They can handle that. So we would like to look at this. So many talk about this. Okay, my experience as the president of the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology tell me that not just a single subject that we're supposed to focus on the student, but also the integration, the application of what they have learned in the school, supposed to be applied to their daily life, to the new situation. So we're talking about skills of the student that we need to do. Making decision is a must. Problem solving is a must. Critical thinking or creativity is that. So we think that the approach of integration the subject like STEM could do the work, and having them sharpen their skills. Just starting from questioning, they got to wonder why, how, right? And end up with whatever around them. So it would be meaningful, more meaningful. So we have to do 2 tracks together. In a very weak schools, the capacity of the student, we found that we need to encourage the single subject as well. As I mentioned, reading or mathematics, and then we can attract them with the activities like STEM that we try to make them realize the application of this kind of subjects could help them. But we didn't ignore other subjects. They try to have many STEM derivatives. I would say STEAM with art, STEM with art, or with some others. Or even in Thailand, they have STAR STEM because they think that it might exclude, the values, the character, or other things related to their society, everything. So they try to put it and ask teachers to integrate everything, every subject in STEM, So it's crazy to me. Actually, it's already there, We don't have to spell out in doing some things. We need to get about that. But to what degree it depends on the work that we are going to do, on the project that student would like to, try to solve all of these things like that. But actually, so we kind of encourage the teachers and school, even our country, on regional countries, they feel the same way, that we got to do this together, right?
Well, one of the things that I found is that we can give teachers a lot of really good resources. You can tell them this is the way to teach. but we're still seeing the same type of thing happening in the classroom, that there isn't really a shift. So to shift the thinking of the students, the teachers have to have a shift in thinking.
Right.
And I see this as one of the biggest challenges,
Right.
really, that we face, period.
Right.
And so part of, I guess what happened to me once was I was speaking to a minister of education for a province, and he said to me, Kim, what's really, and this is in an underdeveloped country,
Right.
and he said, what do you see is the real problem here, and be honest with me. And I said, well, you've got a lot of good education for the teachers, but the teachers' reasoning hasn't changed themselves. And until the thinking of the teacher changes, you're not going to see the thinking of the students change. So how do we get the thinking of the teachers to change is a big question I have. And I'm not too sure, are you seeing the same type of thing here, or are the teachers changing quickly? Are they do you think they're making that change, or do you think that is an issue here as well?
Well, we need to change teachers, I agree with you. But above the teachers, we need someone that have visions and support them, in school. That I would say that the school principal is a must, They're supposed to be like an instructional leadership. They're supposed to be that way. So in trying, for the in-service teachers, for example, trying to develop them and let them go back to school, they may do nothing. They may not change because they don't have any resources as they get from the training. So the school principal has to support them or encourage a group or community of teachers in that school to help. And this is part of their job. It's not just general administration, right? Procurement, recruitment, or things. So this is our great problem, because we have done a project for school improvement. We think that we cannot improve teachers solely. We have to improve school as a unit of development, so we can reach out to instructional leadership of the school principal. In Thailand we call school principal the director.
Okay.
They're supposed to be headmaster, right?
Oh, yes.
Not director at all,
That's interesting, because I was teaching some teachers once in a school, a workshop, and I said, and I know exactly what you're talking about,
Right.
because I saw the principal, and I said, we missed you at the workshop. And she looked at me and said, well, why? And I said, well, I was introducing some pedagogy and some interesting ideas. The teachers are really getting ahead. And she said, oh, well, I'm not a teacher. And I said, yes, but you're a principal, and you're there to help support your teachers in the classroom to make sure they know what they're doing. She looked super surprised. She said, well, I do administration. And I thought, there's the problem. Right. And you just said it the same thing. So how do you get the proper support? This is one of our mission of the Simeo country also, and partnership with the private sector is also helping us, try this and show them the evidence that what works, I would like to mention about the Kinan project. Also on the school improvement, we work together, IPST and Kinan, in doing this project, but maybe different target group, so we can compare, we can see, but we get the same result. And seeing that, we need to do not just teacher themselves, but we need to do some other things. Talking about personnel, the director of schools, the supervisors of each subject. We need to have mentors or coach. We need to use other approach like professional learning communities, PLC, together with what teachers doing in the classroom. We have to look beyond the school setting. We have to look at the policy, how the ministry set the policies for assessment, for classroom
size is important, you know. If you're not limited to 30, 40, or it could be exceed to 50 or 60. And
Really?
how
Yes.
teachers can handle that, you know. For the, you know, the prestige one, the popular school that the student go to university in the department that is very popular among them, you know. So it caused a lot of problems. Tutoring school, parents got to afford all kinds of these courses in order that their students, their child, could go to the right department, to the right university. That is it. It's not some other thing. So we need to look at like classroom level, school level, and policy level. I mean, look beyond outer school and how we can connect those. I mean, schools together, and how we can connect with some others like university to help, you know, because faculty of education supposed to have the personnel who can help teachers, at least, you know, to supervise them, to help train them, whatsoever. Because the effort of the government themselves could not do anything like that. I mean, of each unit, they just general, and okay, try to have them struggle and meet their policy, but actually in reality, practices might be different, right? So we found out, and I think that the school improvement model that we are working on going to be transfer our experience to regional countries as well.
Oh, nice.
If you want to develop teachers, don't just develop them. You have to develop outer personnel concerning
Okay.
with the education
Yes.
at the classroom or school level as well.
Yes.
That could be a big thing.
Big part, yes. Yeah, part of another part that I've seen, and it's interesting you're seeing the same, is that I find often that we have three different silos happening. We've got the educators, we've got business, and government, and they sort of do their part, and they say, well, and the rest is up to everybody else. And it's almost like education itself, people will put in what they feel they need to release, and then they turn around and it's like, now my job's done. But in fact, education doesn't finish even. It's not just about going to school.
Right.
It's about after that. And for businesses to ensure that they're going to have the people of the future, I believe very strongly that businesses should be much more involved in this.
Exactly. Because, you know, just only the government budget could not do
No,
everything
no.
for them.
No.
But partners with like non-NGO, non-government or private sector, but they have to have some things from what we have done also
Yes.
to our teachers, to
Yes.
students. Just like we all mentioned about the career academy, and that countries, I mean single countries, just think that we might have to encourage this. In Thailand, we do 3 big areas. For specifically for the vocational school, they have some kind of work integrated learning. They send this to the private sector, like a vehicle factory,
Okay.
or
Yes,
a
yes.
kind of mechanic things like that, or even higher education, they got to do things as well. They have several departments dealing with this kind.
So
you
an
know.
integrated
Right.
education system.
Right.
Where, yes.
And I think the most important one is basic education, because even they are going to in the vocational area, they got to finish compulsory education. You know, that means grade 9. From grade 9, they can go to vocational school. From grade 12, they can go to university, things like that. So we have to strengthen skills and the use of science and math and technology so that they can be a better workforce, you know. So at the higher education sector, they also produce a kind of professional, quite high professional things. And for vocational, like a mid-level or beyond that. But we have to have the better quality for their product as well. And for this, we kind of think that they do many things that involve with industry, with factories, but actually with the service career, service sector. We badly need, when we look at the future, that people like us going to be aging group, in that group. So more and more demand from many countries that talking about healthcare or health science, we need good caregiver,
Yes.
not just train with the several hours and that's it. We need to certify this kind, and we need to help them have career at, once they finish the school, either level, if they can just only compulsory, they have to do this.
Well, there's also a global concern about keeping humanity in
Right.
there, and how do we strengthen humanity
Right.
and differentiate it from technology too.
Right.
And I think that's really a good point in terms of the service industry. You're doing a lot, and you have done a lot, and you
Right.
still have a huge mission that you're still working on. Can you just? I think it would be very interesting to hear about your story. Where did you come from to
My
be able to
story.
get to this,
Okay.
and to be able to have such an influence in Thailand?
Right.
What were you like as a child?
What I like as a child, actually, I would like to be a teacher with long qualification, in many areas that I could have. Because in my old days, my teacher, they got everything quite aligned, a long line, like diploma in education, bachelor, master, doctoral, things like this, If we write down there, it's quite long, and we think that we have autonomy to change our young generation. That is my impression on this career. And I would like to share you that I finished the bachelor degree in science at Chulalongkorn University. So I think that at that time, if you are woman and earn bachelor degree in science, there are very limited pathway for the career, except you can be a teacher. You cannot go to the factory like men do, So my parents, my father, he's quite inspired to me. He said that, why don't you go ahead to master degree, to gain education degree, so you can do whatever you like. So I pursue my study at Chulalongkorn in the secondary education. Yeah. So once I finished in a year and a half, so I work with IPST. Yeah. I think that my qualification match exactly with the mission of IPST. Science background, education background. So I work with them until for 5 years. I think that the world changing a lot, and I have to do something small, not just use the same knowledge or experience that I have from schools, from university. So I asked for study leave to the United States, and at that time, computing science is kind of boom, starting to change our life. So I go into this career, computing science teaching.
Oh, really?
Still teaching, not real
Yes,
computer
yes.
science. I have to compete with the young, freshmen, sophomore thing, but they are bright, and they're more 30-somethings at that time, But it's okay for me. Once we come back, I start working on computer literacy curriculum for the country, yes. So we deal at that time science, math, and technology. So this is quite a foundation, and we work with teachers all across to try to develop teachers. And we feel that if in-service teacher could do this, but not just once a year or 2 times a year, is not that, yeah. But we have to develop continuously, depend on them. Might not the formal training, but it could be access to anything that they have, It depends on teachers. We the school principal, I would say the director has to inspire them. And also there's some kind of other incentive that the government could offer as well, right? So this is my story. So I get acquainted with teaching and learning science and mathematics, and I see all the problems, and I introduce STEM education for 5 years. But before that time, we deal with special subject, right? The talent in science, talent in math, talent in technology. So we feel that we have to blend these together. I mean, in the teachers themselves,
Yes.
There's quite a question that teachers are supposed to gain pedagogy, skills, or knowledge. I would say that 50-50, I would say.
Yes.
It's not just the knowledge,
Yes.
but it's supposed to be how to deliver that knowledge in the quite, correct conception,
Yes.
not just miss them, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We've had rocket scientists
Right.
try to teach for us, and it didn't work.
Right.
You can be as smart as can be,
So
you need to have
Right.
a balance. Yes.
Right, so for years I deal with many groups who are in the educational area. So once the former minister proposed to establish this, so I think that my past experience could contribute to this, not just Thailand, but also to regional countries as
Yes.
well. And it's more flexible than I was, as a president of IPST, but I have to follow the ministry.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that I can do this, but I can't do that. Even I would like to do, But for this, we have a kind of, autonomy to work out with our friends of countries in the regions. We have to foster them. We have to collaborate with them, not just compete with them. This is very
That's right.
interesting and very important also. Many centers like Rexam in Malaysia, KTEP Science and Math in Indonesia, Innotech in Philippines, I need to make a close friend with them, so that we can join the effort and, do something bigger in that.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
right.
What I've noticed with you is that you had a belief in yourself. You didn't question whether you could do something. You saw something that was needed and you went for it. You also have a belief in people.
Yeah,
And you have a
That's
belief, a
people.
very strong belief that teachers are able to do
very
a huge
important.
amount. Yes. And the other thing I've noticed with you is that the thing that I think has come back a couple of times is the ability for you to do what you feel is needed, and that you're not restrained, that there are options, that there are ways to solve this and to get it done. You just need to have that flexibility and that
Right.
ability to take some autonomy and work with it. This is fascinating talking with you. Really,
Thank you.
really enjoy this. And is there anything else you'd like to add on just at the end? I think even as a child, you must have been really focused on what you wanted, driven, and I just wanted that story of you as a person, as how you grew and went to where you are. Life is never a straight
Right.
path, is it? And we think we're going one way, and then off it goes. So it's always interesting to hear how you got there. I do believe, though, it's your belief in yourself and the belief in others that is really the heart of your mission. They say that someone needs to be believed in first,
Right.
and then they'll start believing in themselves.
Mhm.
And Thailand, I think, is very lucky because you believe in the people in Thailand,
Right.
and that belief is very strong. So it's been a real privilege talking to you and being here to hear this.
Thank you very much. With my pleasure. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was a great interview. I actually, the biggest piece for myself was you and her talking about, I guess, the attractiveness of the teaching profession, or as I would call it, almost, the sexiness of teaching. Here in Western, it's decreased quite a bit, and she's saying that it's happening all over the world. And so I know for myself is how can we make education industry, being a teacher, more attractive. Um, I think that that's a movement that we need to move towards as well. Again, because who's educating the future leaders is very important. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I feel very strongly that there's innovation. Countries who are struggling, they're looking for innovators to teach their kids so that the kids can become innovators. For me, it's really understanding the necessity and the real desire to bring up a nation, and it can't. It's not just the government. In fact, it has to be the everyday person who is saying we can do this all together, and we need many more people like this example to just and to take it in your own hands and to do what is needed, and you can change a whole nation. It's this whole idea of creative thinking, of innovation, is and of also technology and getting technology into the hands and understanding for people is very real in many countries. Now they're a developing country. In many other underdeveloped countries, or those who are developing and really trying, struggling to get ahead, it's important that we understand what their struggles are. And I think she was really able to articulate that nicely in the education field. Yes, Nathan, it is amazing for the teaching profession. Unfortunately, worldwide, I'm listening to a lot of people saying that teaching is not sort of the sexy place to be. It's and that profession, unfortunately, has not attracted many of the top people in our world. And it's time that we say, hey, it is exciting. There's a lot happening in education, and hey, like there's a lot happening in education, and kids are exciting themselves. Go and listen to them because they've got exciting ideas. And maybe if more people actually started listening to young children and also our youth, get into those schools, find out what's going on. You'll find out that there's a lot of incredible ideas, and that's where our next ideas are going to all come from. So we can, like, education is actually the place to be. All industry leaders should be in here. They should be looking for the innovators. They should be trying to encourage the innovators and being part of this partnership to go forward in this world. That's really the secret for our world for the future. And that's how education is going to change. And it starts with innovators like her. She's an innovator of a type. And once we can get more and more people to believe that they can actually make changes like this, then I think we're going to see that education is going to be a lot more exciting, and it's going to be shifting, and it's going to be agile like industry has to be now going forward. So I hope you all really enjoyed listening to her. She gives you a different perspective for what's happening in this world, and how she was able to, I guess, go forward and make changes herself. I think it's important for everyone to understand how people are doing in different parts of the world so that we can also take some of what she said and apply it to ourselves. Hope you enjoyed that too, everybody out there. And Nathan, any other final comments?
No, I think just very quickly, it's very obvious now during COVID who the people are that are able to critically think, problem solve, and be agile, because those are the people that are able to keep afloat, essentially. So I would like to say thank you to everyone that was able to join today's podcast, and stay tuned for next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be pumping them out every week. And please give us more comments, engage with us, because the more that you engage with us, the better we'll be able to produce our content that's relevant for you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody. See ya.